On August 11th, Mercury is going to go direct. Okay, that means Mercury is coming out of retrograde. Hooray, hooray. However, that means that Mercury is about to make its way through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo for the third time this year. Typically, Mercury stays in an individual sign for 3 to 4 weeks. Mercury has been in Leo, since the end of June and will be there until the beginning of August. Okay. So Mercury is staying there for a little bit of extra time, a couple of months this time instead of 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. So Mercury is the ruler over our mind. Mercury is the ruler and the influencer over how we communicate, our perception, how we take in knowledge, how our humor, our intellect. Okay. And Mercury being in Leo, right? Mercury is working on, how courageous we are within our mind. Mercury is working on, our charisma, how we may communicate. Mercury may also be working on our ego, our pride, or our arrogance, how we take in information and how we digest that, and ultimately how we react to it. Okay. So Mercury being in Leo, Mercury is working on that. Now, like I said before, Mercury has been in Leo since the end of June. Okay. So we're going to talk about the 3 rounds just generally. Okay. And then I will go into each individual sign so that we can understand where this energy will pop up in your life, okay? Or has popped up in your life. So originally, Mercury entered these degrees of Leo on June 29th through July 17th of 2025. Okay. But Mercury was also in these degrees of Leo last year, July 4th through July 12th. Okay. So if you're not seeing energy, come back from this year, you might see energy come back from last year. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a person, but this could be very much so related to your behavior, your actions, your thoughts, right? It may be completely different people, completely different scenarios. However, the underlying energy of it all is something similar to probably what you experienced last year. So this is about realigning yourself and growing. Okay. All right. So on this first round, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune. That's this year. Okay. Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune. Now, Saturn and Neptune currently right now are in retrograde in Aries. However, this first time back at the end of June, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune, right? And Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. Saturn is the planet over that influences how we learn from cause and effect, basically karma, right? And that encompasses, your responsibility, your diligence, the structure you have within your life, your actions and what they get from your actions, or what you get from your actions, right? Neptune is the influencer over our imagination and our subconscious, right? So Neptune rules like how we subconsciously act, right? Our ways of self-sabotage, our desires, our dreams, our fears. This could be also ways in which we abuse, right? So Neptune and Saturn are sitting at this point in the same degree of Aries, okay, which is the first degree of Aries before they popped into retrograde. And Neptune and Saturn are working on your actions as it relates to your imagination. Okay. So, this is kind of like how you fall into self-sabotage, because of you pushing forward. And this is Aries energy, right? So this could have anything to do with how courageous you are, how quickly you are trying to do it, right? How forcefully you may be trying to do it, how ruthless or impulsive or impatient you are, right? These are all lessons about that. So with Saturn and Neptune talking to Mercury, right, at the end of June, they are having a conversation, and Mercury, in Leo has not popped into retrograde, but now we are at the degrees where it will be, right? So they're exchanging information. Mercury is like, okay, this person acts this way in their mind as it relates to courage or their pride and their ego. Saturn and Neptune are like, okay, well, this is kind of how they react to their subconscious, and these are the consequences of their actions, right? They're having that conversation at the beginning or at the end of June. And then Mercury also talks to Pluto. Now, Pluto is the most outlying planet, okay? So Pluto is our overall change happening in our life, right? Pluto just entered into Aquarius in 2024, okay? And it's going to be there until 2044, right? So that is the new era that is unfolding in our life. Pluto, okay? It's changing something. And again, we'll talk about it when we get to each individual sign. However, Mercury also had a conversation with Pluto at the end of June as well. And Pluto is the ruler over how we change. Okay, so this is the end of June would have been energy related to how you choose to transition to or from something, how your pride and ego play a part in that, how your arrogance may play a part in that, how your imagination or your self-sabotaging habits may play a part in that. Okay, you may see some energy around karma, cause and effect. Oh man, you waited too long, or you didn't wait long enough, and this is the result of that, right? So that's what's happening at the end of June. Okay, then we have the second round of Mercury going through these degrees of Leo. So Mercury popped into retrograde on July 17th. So that's at 15 degrees of Leo. And then it started to go backward to 4 degrees of Leo, right? So that happened from July 17th to August 11th, right? Because it gets back to 4 degrees and then it'll start going back forward, right? So during retrograde, Mercury talked to Venus. And again, Mercury is, giving you information, influencing you as it relates to, your arrogance, pride, ego, how charismatic you are, how much courage you have as it relates to the realm of your mind, right? Your observations, your communication, how you receive information, your perspective, and what your pride, ego, or charisma does for that, right? So Mercury now talks to Venus in Gemini during retrograde, and this is on July 18th. And Venus is the ruler of our appreciation. Venus is the ruler of harmony, peace, love, abundance, art, beauty, relationships, okay, partnerships, okay? And now Venus is in Gemini, right? So this is sextile energy, that Leo, that fire air energy provides opportunities for us to kind of see how our energies interact within ourselves, okay? So now Mercury in retrograde is going back through this energy a second time. So again, you may see things come back, from the end of June, or you may see things or energy, your behavior patterns revisit from last year at the beginning of July when Mercury was in Leo before this year. Okay, so Venus is working on your curiosity or maybe your shallowness or the imbalance, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Okay, so that Gemini energy is very much so something of the mind, right? Your flexibility, how you imagine things to be, right? So Venus is, you might see an opportunity, and again, opportunities, or may have seen an opportunity. Again, opportunities don't mean good or bad. Opportunities come by way of how aligned you are. So if you are not aligned, you're trying to push forward in energy that you're not supposed to be in, the opportunity is something to get you out of that. Jar your butt up out of it, okay? If you are in alignment and trying to go towards your highest and greatest good and be cautious about your behaviors, the opportunity will be something to maybe confirm that you are going in the right direction, or that you are doing the right thing, or you are practicing the right behaviors. Okay, you see how that works? All right, and then Mercury on the 31st of July would have talked to the sun. Now the sun is an illuminator. The sun shows you something. So at the end of July, right, the sun being in Leo, the sun rules Leo. So this is heavy energy, right? And this is a conjunction. So Mercury is in retrograde, all right? And it's directly next to the sun, right? Or on top of, they're at the same degree on the 31st. And again, there's an emphasis here on your charisma, your pride, your ego, your arrogance, your courage as it relates to your mind. Okay, and the sun represents your ego and pride as well. So heavy emphasis. You may have had some sort of ego trigger, pride trigger, possibly, okay? And then now that leads us to this third time around. So this happens between August 11th and August 24th, okay? Between August 11th and August 24th, Mercury is going to be making its way back for the third time from 4 degrees to 15 degrees of Leo, right? So this is like the conclusion to all of the big lessons you were supposed to learn in retrograde, all right? And on this third time around, Mercury will be talking to Mars. And I say this in my Mars in Leo video, so you should go watch that because it should already be posted at this point, right? But Mercury gets to talk to Mars in Libra on the 15th and the 18th of August, okay? So Mars is going to pass Mercury, okay? Because Mercury will have just left retrograde on the 11th, so it's spinning, in the correct direction. However, it is slowly begin to take off in, the direction it typically would spin in, right? Or travel in. So as it slowly, because Mercury moves way faster than Mars does, okay, as it slowly starts to progress through Leo and eventually it'll just shoot off, right? That's why we get 2 separate times where Mercury gets to talk to Mars, because Mars is moving at its normal pace. Mercury is slowly, revving up, and then it'll start moving quickly and it'll catch up and pass Mars, okay? So on this third round, all right, through on August 18th or August 15th and 18th, Mercury is going to be talking to Mars. Now, Mars is in Libra, all right? And Mars is the influence over our behavior. Mars is the influence over our action and our drive, what pushes us forward, okay? Mars is the ruler of Aries as well. And again, we started off with Mercury talking to Saturn and Neptune in Aries before Saturn and Neptune went into retrograde, okay? So now Mercury is talking to Mars, okay, the ruler of Aries energy. And Mars right now is in a very peaceful, diplomatic realm. All right. So this is where you learn the difference between like being fair and being helpful versus being indifferent, right? Or trying to be convenient. All right. So Mars, your actions, your behaviors, what pushes you forward, you know, your aggression, your courage, your strength, how bold you are, right? Mars is in a very even mood, right? Wanting to balance, wanting to bring behavior, influence behavior to where you are kind of like gearing on the side of peace. Okay. So with this last time, Mercury is going to be talking to Mars, and now we are going to be moving forward. So on this first round, June 29th through July 17th, or July 4th through July 12th, because that's 2024. That's when Mercury was making its way through Leo in 2024 and 2025, right? Mercury is talking to other planets as it relates to your cause and effect, your karma, your structure, your responsibility around your imagination, how you react, interact with your imagination, right? And the change that is happening within your life because of it, right? The second round, right? Mercury talks to planets and star, right? And this is creation, the possibility, you opening up yourself to maybe creating something peaceful or more positive for yourself. And there was also something that came in that highlighted something about your pride, ego, or, you know, highlighted something about your creativity or how you express yourself. And then this third time around, then comes the action, right? So it's kind of like something started. This is a trigger. This is how you react to something. You need to look at this, right? The retrograde brought in, this is something that you need to look at. And maybe you could possibly be a little bit more peaceful here. Maybe there's opportunities for you to create, to express yourself in a different way. Maybe you can be a little bit more flexible about how you reacted originally, right? Or how you thought about this or your perception originally. And then this third time, August 11th through the 24th, this is now where the actions come into play, right? This is peace. Venus rules Libra, right? And Mercury just talked to Venus in this retrograde. And now Mars is in the realm that Venus rules. So your actions then need to follow suit with the perspective that you gained while Mercury was in retrograde talking to Venus and the sun. Okay, so this is where those peaceful diplomatic behaviors start to come into play. And again, it depends on how aligned you are, because if you are overly peaceful, maybe this is the time you need to kind of be a little bit hesitant, or maybe be a little bit more indifferent, or be okay with things just being convenient with yourself. There's always an equal balance, all right? It depends on how aligned you are in your life. All right, so now let's talk about the individual signs and where you can see this energy show up in your life. So I am going to explain to you. I do it by rising sign. Your rising sign tells you where in your life this is going to show up. Right? That is how you would look at it. Oh, this is in your finances, or this is, you know, in your schedules and your routines. This is in your relationships. That's your rising sign to tell us where, right? But you are also able to look at this via your sun sign. If you were to look at this via your sun sign, this would be in relation to your pride and your ego, you know, how you view the world. Okay. If you were to look at this in your moon sign, right, this will be in relation to your emotions or your habits, your instinct. All right. You would have to look at it from that perspective. Okay. So let's jump right into it. Aries, all right? So Mercury, it has been working on your charisma or your arrogance as it relates to your self-expression and your entertainment. Mercury is in the 5th house of Leo, okay, for you. So this is like how you entertain. This is your short-term dating, casual sex. This is children. These are your hobbies, and this is even your entrepreneurship, okay? So let's talk about the first round. On the first round, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune in your first house, okay? So this is something about yourself, very much so your ego and your pride. That's where your first house, that's where your ego and pride lies, in your first house, okay? So Saturn and Neptune are sitting in your first house back in June of 2025, or also July 4th through July 12th, right? This could bring energy from that as well. So Mercury is talking to Saturn and Neptune in your first house of Aries. This is talking about the interaction between your impulsiveness or your impatience as it relates to your imagination, where your mind, your subconscious takes you when things are not working out in the way that you would expect them, or maybe when you are a little bit triggered within your pride and ego, right? Mercury, Saturn, and Neptune popped up some energy in your life back at the end of June to kind of have you take a look at this, okay? And then with Pluto being in your 11th house of Aquarius, Pluto is you're having an overall change as it relates to your social life, Aries rising, okay? Because Pluto is the most outer planet, and that is what is for the long term in your life, for the next, 17 years or so. That is what's going to be changing your life, your social life, your community, okay? So Mercury is talking to Pluto, and Pluto is in retrograde while Mercury is talking to Pluto. All right. So Pluto and Mercury are helping to assist to find balance within how you kind of rebel, or like how unique you are, how social you are, how you express yourself within your community or your social nature. So this could be like your hopes, wishes, and dreams. This is your friendships. This is your alliances. These are your social clubs. This may be your employer benefits as well. All right. So at the end of June, Mercury is talking to Pluto, right? And you see something pop up as it relates to your community and all the things I just expressed. And that is something that might be very internally triggering to you, or you might change your focus as to what it is that you are going after, or who it is you choose to become friends with, because you are triggered within your ego or pride, okay? The second round, when Mercury was in retrograde, Mercury was talking to Venus in your third house. Okay, so this is like Mercury again in your fifth house is working on how you express yourself within your realm of self-expression and entertainment. Okay, and with Mercury talking to Venus in your third house, they are working together. This is during retrograde. This is the middle to end of July. Mercury working with Venus to bring opportunities to help you find, a balance within, your curiosity or your shallowness within your mind, like how your mind is thinking. And Venus is the ruler over our appreciation and our harmony. So Venus wants to bring peace, right? So there was something here that may have gone, opposite to what it is that maybe you thought. And maybe the energy that came into your life is something that could have been used to change your perspective, okay? And then at the end of July, Mercury talked to the sun, right? And the sun is in your fifth house. This is a conjunction. So it's in your fifth house. So there's something here that was very brightly illuminated for you at the end of July, right? To kind of expose, energy around, again, your charisma or your arrogance, your pride, your ego within how you express yourself, or within, your house of entertainment, your fifth house. And then this third time around, right? This is August 11th through August 24th. Mercury is going to be talking to Mars in your seventh house. So this is your house of long-term bonds, your partnerships, your deep bonds. Now, Mars is in Libra. Okay, so that's behaviors that kind of like bring peace, right? So again, in retrograde, there should have been something that could have been used to change your perspective, as Venus is in Gemini, right, within your third house, something that could have changed your mind about something, right? And now, as Mercury comes out of retrograde, right, now Mercury is going to be interacting with Mars, and now we have opportunities to be influenced to kind of lean more into peaceful behaviors, to make amends, to fix something, maybe to change your perspective so things can be a little bit more peaceful for you as it relates to your deep bonds or your partnerships or your friendships, very long-term friendships, right? Because again, that change is happening in your 11th house. So overall, as Mercury starts working its way back through 4 degrees to 15 degrees of Leo, right, on August 15th and 18th, it talks to Mars, right? And there are going to be opportunities for you to act with the new perspective that you should have gotten out of retrograde. And this is in relation to a long-term partnership or deep bond. Okay. All right. Taurus, Mercury has been working on your charisma or your arrogance within your home, your internal security, your past, your upbringing. Okay, so this first time around, either, the end of July, July 29th through July 17th of this year, right? Or July 4th through July 12th of last year, right? This is energy that Mercury is making its way through 4 degrees through 15 degrees of Leo. All right, and as I said before, Mercury is working on your mind as it relates to the courage that you have, the charisma that you have, your pride, ego, or arrogance. All right. And again, this is in your internal security, what makes you comfortable, your comfortability, and also your privacy as well. Now, in this first round, at the end of June to the middle of July, Mercury talked to Saturn. Now, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune on June 28th. Okay. And this would have been in your 12th house of Aries, right? So there's an emphasis here around your subconscious and your imagination, deep emphasis, right? Because Neptune rules Pisces, and Pisces rules that 12th house. So there's a very deep emphasis on your subconscious and your imagination and how you interact with that. Saturn is working with Neptune to bring you lessons, to bring you observations around your karma, cause and effect. Okay, so there's something there that would have popped up at the end of June in relation to that for you. Additionally, at the end of June, Mercury talked to Pluto. All right. And Pluto is in retrograde in your 10th house. So for you overall, if we were to talk about your overall life change, right, there is a long-term transition that is happening as it relates to your career, your ambitions, your goals. This could be in relation to the influence you have, the fame that you have. This could be in relation to like business or your life direction. Okay. So Mercury is talking to Pluto in your 10th house, which, you know, there's a change happening there. And Mercury and Pluto are having a conversation around like how you kind of rebel maybe there, or how unique you may feel as it relates to your ambitions or goals, or how social you are, how original you are within that energy. Okay. And that would have been that first round. So that's Mercury going through 4 through 15 degrees the first time. Then Mercury hit retrograde at 15 degrees and went back to 4 degrees. And that happened July 17th through August 11th. And during that time, Mercury talked to Venus on July 18th. Now, Venus is in Gemini in your 2nd house. Okay. So there's a perspective change. There is like a curiosity. There are peaceful opportunities for you to kind of change something as it relates to your values or your resources. This could be your finances, your possessions, right? Your self-worth, the things that you value, your appetite for pleasure and food. Okay. These are your literal resources. Okay. Now, Venus is coming into your 2nd house to kind of like change your perspective. So there was something here that could have been created, right? New financial endeavors. It depends on how aligned you are. Because again, if you are finding yourself going after things that just are so hard for you to grab on, you likely are not aligned to that. So if I say an opportunity, I don't mean something good. This just means to snap you into alignment. So if you grabbing over here, that thing might disappear, right? Because you're not supposed to grab it. You're not comprehending that. Right. And that for you might be jarring, right? So it's not a good or bad thing. It's just there's something here that's going to put you into alignment within your finances. There's an opportunity here. And then on July 31st, the sun, and Mercury have a conversation. The sun is in conjunction with Mercury, meaning they are in the same degree. All right. And the sun is the influencer over your ego and your consciousness. And it's in Leo. The sun rules Leo. So there's heavy emphasis on your ego, pride, and your consciousness. Okay. So Mercury in Leo, right? Your mind and how you perceive something to be is working on something in your home, your 4th house. Again, your internal security, your actual home. For some people, this might be real estate, right? This is Taurus rising. This might be actual real estate. Maybe you were trying to buy a house, right? And for some people, this could be you were trying to buy a house and you got approved for a loan. Or for some people, you were trying to buy a specific house that maybe you were not meant to buy. There was something wrong with the house and you were trying to push forward and trying to get, the appraisals and all the things, and it's no longer available to you because you wasn't supposed to buy the house. This is what I mean by that, right? So there's something here that comes along and is highlighted around your home, your internal security. This could be actual real estate. This could be your past, your upbringing, your sense of security, your family. This could also be your femininity. All right. And then we have our 3rd time around. This is August 11th through August 24th. Okay. Now, Mercury is going to be in Leo all the way until August 2nd, but August 11th through the 24th is when Mercury is going to be working its way through the 4 through 15 degrees for that 3rd time. Okay, so on August 15th and August 18th, Mercury is going to be talking to Mars in Libra in your 6th house, right? So there is something here around your routines, your schedules, your vitality, your independence, right? As it relates to your behavior, right? So there's a need for you with Mars in Libra, and I have a Mars in Libra video up that explains Mars in Libra in total, and this is also in that video. But Mars in Libra requires your behaviors, your actions, the courage that you have to kind of lean towards making peace for yourself. Right. And for you, this is in the 6th house. So your behaviors and your actions and what you push forward in needs to be in healthy habits. Right. So again, if I go back to somebody who is, maybe looking for a loan for a house. Right. And maybe you saw a house, you went to go try to get financing for that house, and in retrograde you got denied, right? And that's because you don't have good financial habits, right? You don't have habits of saving your money. You don't have habits of, or even more so, maybe, this is your 6th house. So this is the difference between work and career. Maybe you don't enjoy your job, right? And like you realize that it doesn't pay enough for the lifestyle that you want to have or the things that you want to attain. So maybe I need to change, working to a career. Maybe I need to start, I don't know, creating a schedule in which I apply for different jobs that will allow me to have a career. It depends on the person, right? But again, for you, this is going to be harmonious or behaviors that bring peace and harmony into your life as it relates to your daily routines, your daily schedules, and your vitality. All right. And that's how Mercury is going to end off. And then Mercury is going to make its way into Virgo. Okay. Gemini. So Mercury has been working on your charisma or arrogance around your mind or how it is you communicate your perception. Okay, so again, Mercury in Leo is in your third house. Mercury rules Gemini, which rules the third house, and you are a Gemini. So there's heavy emphasis on how you process. Okay, how you take in information. You are a Gemini rising. So emphasis on how you process, how you take in information, the courage that you have. Okay, and with Leo being your third house, right? This is kind of like your perception, like how your mind works. Okay, maybe you think you know everything, right? There's a lot of pride and a lot of ego, and you are a Gemini rising, right? So you got all the information, you have everything, right? This could be heavy arrogance as it relates to your mind space. Okay, so this first time around, there's an emphasis here, right? June 29th through July 17th, this is when Mercury was making its way through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo. In addition to that, last year, July 4th through July 12th, this is when Mercury was making its way through 4 degrees through 15 degrees of Leo. But this year, Mercury goes through these degrees 3 times, okay? So you may have energy, you know, during the retrograde that returned from the end of August to mid-July, or this could be behaviors or thought processes that you are having that kind of are repetitive that returns from, you know, July of 2024 as well. All right, so during this time this year, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune in Aries in your 11th house. All right, so this is before Saturn and Neptune popped into retrograde because they are in retrograde right now. Mercury had a conversation with them. All right, now Saturn and Neptune are bringing lessons and observations around your imagination and your subconscious and the cause and effect of that as it relates to how you push forward in that energy, especially, you know, how quickly you do it or how impulsively you do it. And this is obviously related to your pride and your ego, like these triggers that you have. How do you fall into your behaviors? Is it aligned? And typically it's not. You know, we all here learning. We all here got lessons. Okay. So it's typically something that is brought up. So this is something that's happening June 28th. All right. That is Mercury talking to Saturn and Neptune, bringing you lessons around, you know, how your imagination and your subconscious, affects you. And this is in your 11th house. Okay. So this is within your community. This is within your social life. This is your social nature, right? This is your friendships, alliances. This is memberships. This is employer resources. This is your hopes and your wishes. This for you could even be stock market. Like it could be the stock market for you. All right. And then at the end of June, Mercury talked to Pluto. Now Pluto is in retrograde in this 9th house. Pluto is the most outlying planet in our birth charts. Okay. And Pluto represents our transformation and our change, right? Pluto influences that. So there is a change that is happening overall in your life, in your 9th house, as it relates to your exploration or discovery, you know, how you grow, how you learn things, cultural things. This could, for you could also be a second life partner, spirituality, religion, long distance travel, cultural learning, higher education, right? So there is an overall change happening within that realm of life with you because Pluto is an Aquarius in your 9th house, right? So Pluto's going to be there until 2024, not 2024, 2044. Okay. So this is a long change. Okay, so Mercury is talking with Pluto and they're exchanging information around how you learn in your outer world, how you discover in your outer world. And Gemini, your first house is related to how you discover in your inner world within yourself, right? So there's an emphasis here, a difference between, you know, like your internal self and how you process through information versus your external self and how you process through your external world because of it, right? That's the conversation that Pluto and Mercury are having at the end of June. Okay, so there would have been something there that may have popped up as it relates to your ideology, you know, ethics and all the stuff that I just mentioned, okay, in your 9th house. And then Mercury popped into retrograde. So this is the second time Mercury is at 15 degrees and it's going to start going back towards 4 degrees. And this happened July 17th through August 11th. So now Mercury is talking to Venus in Gemini in your first house. Now, Venus is the ruler over our appreciation and harmony. Venus wants to bring in peace and abundance and love and joy and happiness. Venus, I just want the best in everything. Okay, so this is an opportunity. And again, opportunities don't mean good or bad. It depends on how aligned you are. All right, so within yourself, right, Venus is coming into your first house of self, your focus, your soul's purpose, right, your attitude, you know, the mask you present to the world. And Venus is coming in trying to provide opportunities with Mercury during retrograde to help you kind of understand yourself or your identity a little bit more. Maybe be a little bit more flexible in the person that you think you are, right? Be a little bit more flexible, give you opportunities to kind of adjust your perspective on who you are, because this is your first house. Okay. And then at the end of July, Mercury then comes into a conjunction with the sun and Leo in your third house. So we're going back to that third house again. All right. And again, this goes back to your mind, Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini, which rules you. Okay. That rules your first house. And also the third house is ruled by Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which rules you. So there's, again, a heavy emphasis here on your mind and your perspective, how you take in information. Okay, so with the sun comes in and shines a light. Look at that right there. There was something that happened to the end of July that would have popped you in your head. Okay, and you should probably already know what I'm talking about. Okay, and if you don't, you got to pay more attention to your life, because if you are a Gemini rising, this hits you hard because this hits your first house. Okay. And then last but not least, we have our third round. Now, August 11th through August 24th, Mercury is going to be making its way through 4 degrees through 15 degrees for a third time. All right. And now this is where Mercury talks to Mars. Mercury is going to spin very slowly at first in place and kind of slowly start taking off. And Mars moves at a slower pace than Mercury does. Mars is going to pass the area that creates a sextile between Mars and Mercury. But then Mercury is going to speed up. And 3 days later, Mercury is going to pass Mars again. So Mercury and Mars talk to each other twice between August 15th and August 18th. Okay. Now, Mars, my Mars and Libra video should already be up, right? Mars is the ruler over our behavior, our action, our drive, what pushes us forward, the strength that we have, the confidence that we have, the courage that we have, the boldness that we have, right? And it's in Libra, right? So this is kind of like leaning more on fair, harmonious energy, fair, harmonious, diplomatic behaviors. Now, Libra is ruled by Venus. And again, during retrograde, Mercury had a conversation with Venus in your first house already. So we already should know, I don't want to say we already should know what that your action should be. But if you were to pick up the energy, or if you did pick up on the energy during retrograde, right, then you should know how you need to behave going forward, right? Because there's something here that would have changed your perspective about yourself, about your ego, about your pride, about your focus, about your soul's purpose, about your attitude, about your mask that you present to the world. Okay, so you should already have a very personal idea about what this is for yourself. Now, this is within your fifth house. Okay, so this is your house of self-expression, creativity. This is your house of love affairs. This is your house of children, casual sex, entrepreneurship. Okay, so there is something here that, a behavior that needs to kind of be leaning more towards fair, diplomatic, and helpful to help you move forward or help align yourself toward where it is that you want to go, or toward your highest and greatest good. Now, after the 15th and the 18th, Mercury is going to make its way through Leo, and it won't have any other aspects, and it'll pass into Virgo on September 2nd. Okay, but right now, we're going to focus on fair, diplomatic behaviors. Okay, Cancer. So Mercury has been working on your mind, observation around your charisma / arrogance / ego / pride within your house of values and resources. Okay, so this is your finances, your possessions, lending and borrowing. This is your self-worth. This is your appetite for pleasure, your appetite for food. This is your material desires. This is your personal wealth. Okay, so Mercury is kind of already has been since June, right? Has been working on your courage and pride, ego, as it relates to this area of your life. All right, so this first round, as Mercury was making its way through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo, right? This happened at the end of June, June 29th through July 17th of 2025, or right? Or July 4th through July 12th of 2024. Now, if we were to talk about, energy coming back from last year, it could be actual people, it could be actual circumstances, or this could be a parallel of your behaviors or your thought process as it relates to this aspect of your life, which is your house of resources. Okay, so during this time, this year, 2025, Mercury spoke with Saturn and Neptune in your 10th house. Okay, so this is on the 28th of June. Saturn represents your karma, cause and effect. Neptune influences your subconscious and your imagination. So there are heavy lessons around how your subconscious or imagination has played a part within your ambitions and your goals, your career, your fame, your contribution to society, your influence, your reputation, right? So this is kind of like a emphasis on how your 10th house, which again is all the stuff that I just said, is impacted by your subconscious, right? And then Saturn comes in with obviously karma and lessons to show you, look, this is how you acting right now, and this is the results you get from it. You still want to keep doing that. And this is in the realm of your career, ambitions, and goals. Okay. And then Mercury talked to Pluto June 29th. Okay, now Pluto is the planet that rules over transitions, change, transformation. Okay, and Pluto transitioned into Aquarius 2024. And Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until 2044. So this is like the overall change, these eras of life where, I remember back in the day, I used to love doing these things, right? We moving on, right? And for you specifically, there's an emphasis here because Pluto is in your 8th house, which is ruled by Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto, right? So there's heavy emphasis on how you transition, right? And this is in relation to your career, your ambitions, your goals, how you transition. There's something that's pointing out how you move on or towards things, okay? So then the second round comes along. Mercury pops into retrograde July 17th through August 11th, right? And Mercury in your 2nd house, again, this is around your finances. This is your possessions, right? This is your personal wealth. This is your self-worth, right? This is your appetite, right? So Mercury is talking with Venus on July 18th, right as Mercury enters into retrograde. And Venus is in your 12th house of your subconscious and your imagination, okay? And Venus is the influence over our appreciation and our harmony, right? So there's something here. Venus is coming in wanting to produce some abundance for you. Now you have a choice on what that is, right? Because that 12th house represents your dreams. It represents your desires, but it also represents your fears and illusions and delusions and confusions, right? So Venus, of course, wants to come in and create, but again, it just all really depends on how we're aligned, right? So Venus is trying to give you some flexibility of mind as it relates to something specific around your subconscious or your imagination. Venus is like, hey, here's an abundance of this thing. Is this truly what you want? You got to decide that, right? And then at the end of July, Mercury talks to the sun. Now, this is a conjunction. So the sun and Mercury are occupying the same degree of Leo. All right. So this is very much so in your 2nd house. There is something here that is highlighted. So Venus comes in, is like, is this really what you want? Like, here's an abundance of that. Is this really... You sure this desire is something that you want to bubble up in reality for real, right? And the sun comes in with a flashlight, like, look at that right there, right? In your 2nd house of resources, right? So the sun and Mercury are working to change your mind as it relates to your material resources, okay? And then this 3rd time around, right, as Mercury makes its way the 3rd time through the 4th degree through 5th degree of Leo, it will transition into Virgo on September 2nd. But specifically this 4th through 15th degree of Leo Mercury is now going to talk to Mars. So now you've had an opportunity. There's something here around your behaviors that bubble up as it relates to your career, ambitions, your goals, and how you transition, right? What it is that you do. There's flexibility in that. Maybe you need to change something, maybe you need to, go against the grain and do something different, right? Then during retrograde, Venus comes in and tries to provide an abundance of something as it relates to something maybe that you wanted, or maybe it's you emphasize fear within your subconscious. So Venus comes in and gives you some of that. I mean, there's no bias here, right? So again, if you operate heavily out of fear, maybe Venus comes in and shows you, oh yeah, you're right for fearing that, right? Or if you operate heavily out of desire, Venus comes in and is like, here's a whole bunch of this. Are you sure you want that, right? That's what's happening during retrograde for you. And again, this is an emphasis on your values and your resources. Then this third time around, we are looking in the fourth house where Mars is in Libra. Okay, now Mercury will have just come out of retrograde on the 11th, on the 15th, and on the 18th. Mercury talks to Mars. Now, Mercury only talks to Mars as it makes its way through the rest of Leo. Okay, and it's on the 15th and the 18th. Now, Mars is in Libra, and I have a whole nother video which explains all of the energy like this does as it relates to what you can expect as Mars goes through Libra. Okay, and this is one of those things, right? So this is like Mercury is spinning slowly because it just comes out of retrograde, and Mercury moves faster than Mars. So Mars is going to pass the energy where it would have sextile to Mercury, and then Mercury is going to speed up and pass Mars, right? And it'll sextile again. So Mars and Mercury will work together to provide opportunities as it relates to your diplomatic or your indifferent behavior in your home, your upbringing. Okay, so this is something that might tie directly to your family. It might tie directly to your self comfortability, right? This might tie directly to your sense of security or your ancestry, your past, nostalgia for you, your comfort, your privacy, your femininity. This could be your parents. Okay, so there's something here as it relates to you leaning more towards action or behavior, because Mars rules our drive and the way that we act, right? How we push things forward. That energy needs to be centered around peaceful, diplomatic, helpful behavior that brings peace for yourself. Because this is all about you. This ain't about nobody else. It's for yourself, okay? So as Mercury is going through this third round through these degrees, the concentration needs to be on diplomatic, helpful behavior within your home, your comfort, your privacy, your internal security. Okay? Leo. So Mercury has been working on your charisma or your arrogance, your pride, your ego within yourself or your identity. Okay? This is in your first house. This is yourself. Okay, so this likely encompasses all of your life, but we're gonna talk about like where you would see this pop up for yourself. So again, Mercury has been in Leo in your first house since the end of June. Okay, so let's talk about the energy, right? We had the first round, Mercury going from 4 degrees of Leo to 15 degrees of Leo. The second round going from 15 degrees of Leo to 4 degrees of Leo. The third round going from 4 degrees of Leo and then just going right on past 15 into Virgo. Okay. So this first time around would have been June 29th through July 17th of 2025, or June 4th through June 12th of 2024. Now, if this is prior year energy, this could be someone or something, coming back from your past, or this could just simply be your behaviors. There are new things that trigger you into behaving similarly to how you did back in July 4th through July 12th. Okay, so you just really got to pay attention for what that is for you. So as Mercury works its way through Leo, right? Mercury, like I said before, is working on yourself, right? This is you, your courage, your creativity, pride, and arrogance within yourself. Okay. And as Mercury started to make its first round through the 4 through 15 degrees on the 26th of August, Saturn and Neptune talked with Mercury. Now, Saturn and Neptune are in retrograde right now, but this is in Aries, right? So for you, this is in your 9th house. Saturn is the ruler of our karma, cause and effect. Neptune is the ruler of our imagination imagination and our subconscious. All right. So this is very emphasized, right? Because Saturn and Neptune are occupying at this point the same degree of Aries, right? So they are in a conjunction and they are working together to show you behaviors around your exploration or your discovery, how you expand your ideology, right? Your higher learning for you. This could be spirituality, religion, long distance travel, ethics, law, all right? Cultural learning, right? So there's an emphasis here on your quick or assertive actions, impulsive actions within this realm of life, and how you interact with your imagination because of it. Okay, so there would have been something that was triggered up for you at the end of June. In addition to that, one day later, right, Mercury goes into opposition with Pluto. Now, Pluto is the most outlying planet on our birth chart, and Pluto represents these eras of life that we experience, right? So we are all in the process of changing an era of life. And for you, this is in your 7th house, Leo. So this is like your long-term bonds, your long-term connections. This is could be a marriage for you, a partnership, deep bonds. For you, this is in relation to like how you rebel, how you see things, how you express yourself, how unique you are as it relates to your relationships, business, partnerships, legal contracts. All right. And this is opposition. So you're kind of like pulled in two different directions. Okay. And then that second time around, right, this is July 17th through August 11th when Mercury is in retrograde, right? Mercury, again, still in that first house, you know, looking at your charisma, your creativity, your pride, your ego, right? And Mercury talks to Venus. Now, Venus is in your 11th house of Gemini. Okay, so Venus loves to bring in abundance, peace, harmony, love, right? And this is all really how we vibrate. And again, this is an emphasis on our mind, our imagination, our subconscious, what we manifest up into reality. Venus wants to provide an abundance of that. So again, if you operate out of fear, Venus provides an abundance of fearful things. If you operate out of desire, if you operate out of, you know, illusion, Venus might provide an abundance of illusion. Okay, so there's an emphasis here within your 11th house, your friendships. This is your alliances. This is your social nature. This is your community, social clubs. This is your employer benefits. This is also your hopes and your wishes. All right, so Venus is in your 11th house of your community, working to kind of change the flexibility that you have within this environment for you. And Mercury communicates that. So again, this is yourself and how you show up in your community, right? Your pride and ego and how that is digested in your community, and maybe how you can be a little bit more flexible within yourself, within your community or your social nature. Okay. And then on July 31st, Mercury speaks with the sun. All right. Now, this is a conjunction. So they are together in the same degree in your first house. So the sun and Mercury are sitting right next to each other, having a conversation. And the sun is like, hey, look at that. Look at yourself. You in the first house. Look at yourself. Right. Look at this. And this is, again, around your pride, ego, arrogance within yourself, your attitude, the mask that you have, your soul's purpose, the focus that you have in life. Right. This is very much so about yourself. All right. There's something there that is exposed at the end of July. And then Mercury comes out of retrograde August 11th, right through the 24th. That is when Mercury is going to be making its way back through the 4 through 15 degrees. Now on September 2nd, it'll transition into Virgo, like it'll continue forward, but in this last round, it will only talk to Mars, and Mercury will pass the area that will be sextile to Mars twice, right? So basically Mars will pass Mercury in a sextile, and then Mercury speeds up out of retrograde as it goes direct, and then it'll pass Mars. So Mercury will talk to Mars on the 15th and the 18th of August. Okay. And this is going to be in your 3rd house. So again, this is a change within your mind, and Mars represents our action and our drive as it relates to our behaviors, right? So there is a change as it relates to your mind, right? And you leaning or thinking more in the realm of helpful, diplomatic, or fair behaviors. Okay. So again, this is within your mind or your communication, how you communicate, right? Instead of, communicating out of your pride and ego, maybe this is a moment where you get to choose to be a little bit more peaceful and acknowledge that that's what you are doing, and maybe try to remove yourself from that for a different result. Retrograde is all about restructure, reflection, repair. And Leo, for you, this is about yourself. How you behave, how you act, what is your perception, okay? So there's an emphasis here. You have the opportunity to act differently based on understanding how you are operating out of your pride and ego, and how your subconscious or imagination plays a part in that, okay? So that's what this Mercury retrograde is about for you, Leo. Virgo, Mercury has been working on your charisma or your arrogance within your subconscious or your imagination. Okay, so Mercury had 3 rounds or will have 3 rounds through this 4 through 15 degrees of Leo. The first round would have been June 29th through July 17th of 2025. The second round would have been through July 17th through August 11th. That's when Mercury was in retrograde. And then this third time will be August 11th through August 24th. Okay, then Mercury will eventually make its way into Virgo on September 2nd. All right, so and that'll be your house. So that'll be very important for you. So pay attention to what happens right now. Mercury was in Leo, June 29th through July 17th of 2025, like I said before. But also Mercury was in Leo last year, July 4th through July 12th. So you also may be seeing during retrograde or may have seen energy pop up as it relates to that. So there could be coincidences like parallels. Your behavior as it relates to what you were doing last year may look eerily similar to what's happening this year. Could be different circumstances, different people, or the same circumstances and the same people. Who knows, right? But this is kind of like parallels. Okay. So this first round, as I said before, Mercury is working on, your pride and ego as it relates to your subconscious or your imagination, your charisma as it relates to your subconscious or your imagination. And as Mercury starts at the 4-degree mark and goes to 15 degrees, Mercury speaks with Saturn and Neptune. All right. Now, Saturn and Neptune are in Aries in your 8th house. And Saturn and Neptune right now are in retrograde. Okay. So Mercury got a chance to talk to Saturn and Neptune before they popped into retrograde in your 8th house. Now, Saturn is the ruler of our karma. This is cause and effect. And Neptune is the ruler of our imagination and our subconscious. And Neptune rules Pisces, which rules the 12th house, your subconscious and your imagination. Okay, so there's heavy, juicy, heavy emphasis around your subconscious and your imagination and how you interact and react with that and lessons that will come because of it. And this is in relation to, how quickly you move past things, the courage that you have, how ruthless you are or impatient you are, how quick or enterprising you are. This is like within the realm of imagination for you, how your subconscious pushes you forward or maybe not, or, changes you up, kind of makes you a little bit more firm. Who knows? Okay. So now Mercury speaks with Pluto on the 29th. Now, Pluto is in your 6th house of Aquarius, and Pluto just entered into your 6th house last year. Pluto is going to be there until 2044. So Pluto represents, the eras of our life that we experience, right? If you are an older person, you understand that we go through different types of cycles, right? And Pluto is one of those planets that represents those cycles that we go through. So there's an era change as it relates to the habits and the routines that you have. You may be diverging from your typical normal habits and routines. Maybe you finding a career instead of a job. Maybe you are leaning more heavily into being independent, right? So Mercury talks to Pluto in Aquarius in your 6th house. Now, Pluto will be assisting by helping bring balance to how you change, right? Like, because Aquarius is like rebellious energy. Aquarius is like original energy, very different. It's also very social and very logical as well, right? So this is kind of like, there is a change happening within your routines, but with Mercury in this 12th house, this is kind of like a point towards, is this a healthy habit for you, or is this something that is assisting with you going down the road of self-sabotage, right? This is what's happening at the end of June, okay? And then when Mercury pops into retrograde, Mercury speaks to Venus in your 10th house, right? So again, as I said before, for some of you, this may be you trying to go from a regular 9-to-5 job or, something that you clock in, clock out of, you don't enjoy, to a career, right? And your 10th house represents your career, your ambitions, your goals, the influence that you have, the power that you have, the reputation that you have, right? So Venus comes in and tries to provide abundance, irrespective of what type of abundance it is. It is neither good nor bad. It's dependent on how your mind is working, right? So Venus is in Gemini, flexible, curious, right? So in this moment, if you are desiring, right? You are wanting, desiring, fantasizing about having a career, Venus is going to come into your 10th house and try to create that for you, right? Or if you are fantasizing, desiring, about, unhealthy habits, right? Let's say this could be substance abuse, or you going out and partying a lot, unhealthy habits that kind of don't sustain your goals. Venus comes in and provides an abundance of how that energy will also impact your career, right? So it's irrespective of good or bad, but more so where you in your head and in your mind and your energy are aligned to, right? So Venus comes into your 10th house and provide opportunities, okay, as it relates to your achievements. Now, again, Mercury talked to Saturn already, cause and effect. just maybe a month prior, right? So and this is in your 8th house of transition. So it's up to you where you transition. You already got the transition going for yourself. Now, this is where we say manifestation is real, and you got to think positively, right? Because when you align yourself in your mind and in your heart with where it is that you want to go, and you don't allow yourself to fall victim to those negative thoughts, right? The positivity will follow because you manifest that into reality. If you are participating in those negative thoughts, things will get worse for you, right? Because that is what you are manifesting, right? So there's an emphasis here for everybody. Please make sure you keep a positive mind, okay? And then on the 31st, Mercury is going to be talking to the sun, or Mercury did talk to the sun, 31st of July, right? This is a conjunction. So they are occupying the same space in Leo. All right. And this is in your 12th house. Again, this is your illusions, delusions, confusions, desires, fantasies, fears, worries, self-sabotage. Substance abuse lives in this house as well. So there's a heavy emphasis on your pride, ego, arrogance, your creativity, really, because this is creativity within your subconscious, within your imagination. So there's something here. The sun comes and points a light at something for you, and there's something here that is exposed for you. And then this third time around, okay, August 11th through August 24th, Mercury is going to be talking with Mars, and Mercury is going to be talking with Mars twice, because Mercury comes out of retrograde on the 11th. It'll spin in place for a little second and slowly start to move forward and gain momentum, right? And Mars moves slower than Mercury. So Mars will pass the area that creates a sextile with Mercury, and then Mercury will speed up and pass the area that creates a sextile with Mars. All right. And this is within your 2nd house. This is your house of material value. This is your self-worth. This is your finances. This is your possessions. Lending and borrowing. This is your appetite for both pleasure and food. This is your personal wealth. This, again, is your house of resources, right? So there is something here within your 2nd house, right, in which you need to lean on fair diplomatic behaviors, okay? Because Mars is the ruler of our drive. Mars is the ruler of how we act. So with Mars being in Libra, your behaviors need to lean more towards fair diplomatic, things that bring peace for you. Libra is ruled by Venus, okay? And like I said before, in this 2nd round, Mercury already talked to Venus in that 10th house. And now you have the opportunity to act, right, in the energy of Venus, Libra, right? In that peaceful energy, and pull something in for yourself, okay? And again, this is opportunities within your diplomatic or indifferent behaviors, within your values, your house of resources, okay? So there's an emphasis here within your possessions, finances, resources, appetite, self-worth, right? The behaviors and the actions need to be things that kind of gear on the side of peace and bring positivity for you, okay? As Mercury is making its way out of retrograde and into Virgo. And then this is in your 2nd house. So then Mercury is going to cross into your 1st house. And we will talk about that when Mercury gets to Virgo. Libra. So Mercury is going to be working on your mind, your observation, your communication as it relates to your charisma, arrogance, ego, pride within your community or your social nature, right? So this is within your social clubs. This is friends, alliances. This is your hopes and your wishes. These are your acquaintances. This is, stocks and bonds. This is your employer benefits as well. All right. So with Mercury in Leo, Mercury again is the ruler of our mind, our intellect, our reason, our intelligence, our humor, right? And within Leo, this is kind of how we operate, how we express ourselves, our charisma within that, or pride or arrogance. Okay. So as Mercury made its way through Leo, all right, it passed through 15 degrees twice already. All right. The first round was June 29th through July 17th of 2025. Okay. The second round was retrograde, July 17th through August 11th. Right. And then the third round will be August 11th through August 24th. So let's talk about the first round. Not only does the first round include July 29th through July 7th, or June 29th through July 17th, it also includes July 4th through July 12th of 2024. Now that 2024 energy could be the same people, places, things, energy, or this could simply be your behaviors that kind of parallel that energy. So it could be different people, places, or things, or energy, but your behavior is very similar to something you experienced last year, right? And there's a need for you to pay attention to what is bubbling up in your reality. So during this first round, Mercury talked with Saturn and Neptune sitting in your 7th house. All right. So Saturn is the ruler over our karma, our cause and effect. All right. Neptune is the influencer over our imagination, our sensitivity, our subconscious. So you are having lessons as it relates to your long-term partnerships, to your deep bonds. This could be marriage for you. This is relationships. This is business contract, legal contracts. This is enemies. And overall, your commitments, okay? So there's an energy here around like the courage or how quickly you act within that realm of life, how impulsive you are or how ruthless you are, impatient you are within this realm of life. And Saturn and Neptune, this is before they went into retrograde, had just entered, you know, to these degrees, because this is the first degree of Aries, just entered into these degrees of Aries. So like they are already sending you lessons around your imagination, around your sensitivity, around, you know, the cause and effect of how your imagination pushes you forward, right? Within your actions. All right. So Mercury has a conversation with Saturn and Neptune on the 28th. And then on the 29th of June, Mercury has a conversation with Pluto in your 5th house. Okay. So there's an emphasis here as it relates to, Pluto, okay, Pluto is the outermost planet in our birth chart. Pluto represents the eras in which we have within our life. So if you are like an older person and you may be closer to 40, you understand the difference between, you know, 20-year periods, 15 to 20-year periods, it's something different that you experience, right? Pluto brings that in for us. And Pluto just entered into Aquarius in your 5th house. All right. So, and this is Pluto in retrograde. So Pluto in Aquarius is helping or did help to assist by bringing balance as it relates to your uniqueness in your self-expression, or how you rebel in your self-expression, your entertainment, right? This is your fun and games. This is your entrepreneurship. This is casual dating. This is children. This is flirtation. This is your hobbies as well, right? So Pluto, you know, is talking with Mercury, right? And this is about how in your short-term commitment, right? Because that's what I would like to call that short-term commitment, 7th house, long-term commitment, right? The difference between the two and how you show up. So there's a change as it relates to how you approach your short-term commitments. Well, I guess a child is not a short-term commitment, but this is kind of like, again, fun and games, entertainment. I think of this as like short-term commitment with the exclusion of children, because I don't feel like that's not a short-term commitment. Okay. Or like, I guess this is a better way to put it would be your 5th house is like the house in which you gauge what it is that you want to commit to long-term. There you go. Okay. And then on the second round, when Mercury was in retrograde, so Mercury went to 15 degrees of Leo, and then it turned back around and started going back towards 4 degrees of Leo. All right. So within that energy, Mercury talks to Venus in your 9th house. For you Libra rising, this Mercury energy, just looking at the houses, have something to do with your relationships. Simple as that. Your social nature and your relationships, okay? This could be, you know, your friendships. This could be actual, factual relationships. This could be dating. This could be marriages, right? This could be friends turning into marriages or second life partners. Libra rising, there's an emphasis here around relationships with people. I'm seeing a pattern for you. And there is, so when Mercury talks to Venus, right, in this 9th house, which is a house of the second life partner, there's an emphasis here. Venus likes to bring in abundance, right? And with this energy, this is sextile energy on July 18th, or was sextile energy on July 18th, right? So Venus likes to bring in abundance, appreciation, okay, harmony. However, it's irrespective of good or bad. You choose good or bad. If you in your head are having negative thoughts, low vibrating thoughts, Venus is going to come in and bring in abundance of that, because Venus is going to think that's what you want. If you're having high vibrational thoughts, you are hoping for the best, wishing for more, wishing for abundance that brings peace and positivity, Venus is going to want to come in and provide that. You are the maker of your own reality, just to be clear, okay? So with this energy, this is sextile energy. So again, the opportunities, whether good or bad, you choose good or bad. Venus is bringing in opportunities as it relates to, you know, how curious you are, how flexible you are, but also maybe how shallow you are, how imbalanced you are within your 9th house, which is exploration and discovery. This is higher learning. This is second life partner. Like I said before, this is long-term or long distance travel. This is spirituality, religion, law, ethics. Okay. So Venus is coming in and kind of changing how flexible you are, how imaginative you are within that space, okay? And then Mercury talks to the sun. This is a conjunction, so they occupy the same degree of Leo within that 11th house of this is your social house, right? This is your community. So again, there's an emphasis here on how it is that you show up within your social nature, all right, within your friendships, community. And so the sun comes in and it has a very close conversation with Mercury, and the sun comes in and shines a light on something, and that happened at the end of July. And then on August 11th, okay, Mercury will turn direct and start making its way back through the 4 through 15 degrees of Leo, and eventually will move on into Virgo on September 2nd. All right. And Mercury talks to Mars and Mars only as it makes its way through Leo and into Virgo. All right. So Mercury will talk to Mars twice. Now, Mars is the influencer of our action and our drive. All right. Our behavior, what pushes us forward. All right. So Mars in Libra, right, is going to be assisting by helping to find opportunities for you to operate within your diplomatic, fair, helpful behavior within yourself or your identity, because this will be your first house. Mars is in Libra. Go check out the Mars in Libra video, Libra rising, because again, we go very deep into detail for that, or very deep into detail with that for you. All right. So this Mars in Libra energy, now this is in your first house. So your behavior leans more. Now for you, Libra, because this is your first house, your life encompasses the balance between you being fair and diplomatic versus like falling back and not being that, right? So this is definitely the balance within yourself, right? So this for you, Libra, will be like a life, lesson for you as it relates to how it is you want to move forward, the attitude that you have, the focus that you have, also your ego and your pride as well, right? Because this is very much so in your first house. So there's an emphasis here of you trying to find the balance on how to act to move yourself forward within this Mercury and Leo energy. And again, this is within your community and your social nature. So now you have to figure out how it is that you want to present yourself there, how it is you want to behave there. After, Mercury goes into 4 degrees, it exposes something with that Saturn, Neptune, Pluto aspects in June, at the end of June, right? And then it shows you something different during retrograde, an opportunity for you to kind of be flexible about your perspective. And then after retrograde is your choice on how you act. That's essentially what that says within your social community. Okay. Scorpio. Okay. So Mercury has been working on your charisma, arrogance, pride, ego, or your courage within your ambitions, your goals, the influence you have, the power that you have, the achievements that you have, reputation. For you, this could be business. This could be your honor, right? This is your 10th house. So Mercury is in your 10th house of Leo. All right. Mercury has gone through these degrees, 4 through 15 degrees twice now. So it started off at the beginning, the first round, the beginning or the end of June 29th through June 17th is when Mercury made its first round through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo. And then Mercury went into retrograde on July 17th. It started making its way back to 4 degrees of Leo. And then for the third round, okay, August 11th through August 24th, it makes its way through those degrees for a third time. Okay. So this first time around, this could be inclusive of energy. This first time around, okay, with retrograde energy, respective to retrograde energy, Mercury could have been pulling on the energy that you experienced June 29th through July 17th of 2025. Or it could have also been pulling on energy that you experienced July 4th through July 12th of 2024. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same people, places, or things, right? However, your behavior, your mindset, there would be parallels to what you were experiencing last year. So I would advise you to kind of go back and think about what was going on during July 4th through July 12th of last year as well, because that can give you a little bit more insight on what you are supposed to be working on. Okay. So with Mercury in your 10th house, again, this is ambitions, goals, career, influence that you have, your achievements. So as Mercury starts making its way through these degrees the first time, it has a conversation at the end of June with Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune are in your 6th house, right, of Aries. The 6th house is your house of routines, your daily life. Saturn rules over cause and effect, the karma that you receive. It influences your karma. Neptune influences your sensitivity, your imagination, your subconscious. All right. So both of these planets, because they are occupying the same degree of Aries at this time and at the end of June, right? They're in a conjunction. They both are working on your, or were and still are, because they're in retrograde still in these degrees. They move very slowly. Working on your assertiveness, or even your impatience, your ruthlessness, your impulsiveness, your quick or enterprising nature within your daily life or your routines, right? So this is kind of like, do you stick with what it is that you start? Do you give it enough energy to kind of become a functional routine, or do you just immediately move on? You know, that's that kind of energy. And how does your mind, your imagination, your subconscious help with that? Those are the lessons that Saturn and Neptune are trying to teach you in your 6th house. So Mercury in your 10th house of career and ambition is talking to Saturn and Neptune. And the difference between your 10th and your 6th house is your internal daily routines, right? And your 10th house is your external routines, right? So this is your career, this is your ambitions, this is your goal, this is on the outside of yourself, what you want to accomplish in the world, right? And your 6th house is what you want to accomplish at home, within yourself, in your internal self, right? So there's an emphasis here. Your 6th house is more of a house of work and routine. Your 10th house is more of like an accomplishment house. I did all of these things and now I can reap the benefit. I can reap the reward of these accomplishments and attaining my goals, right? So that's the difference between the two. So this is kind of like pointing that energy around how you get to your long-term goals, starting with your internal goals within your daily routines and how that plays a part in overall you accomplishing your overall goals, okay? And then on June 29th, Mercury talks to Pluto. Now, Pluto is responsible for these era changes that we have in life, all right? Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until 2044. Pluto just crossed into Aquarius last year, okay? And Pluto right now, or back then and right now, is in retrograde. Back then and right now is in retrograde. All right. Pluto is the influencer over how we change, how we transform, how we transition, right? So for you, this is in your 4th house, right? So this is like your house of home. This is your internal security. This is your comfortability. This is your privacy, right? So there's an emphasis here with this 4th house energy now entering into the picture, your comfortability playing a part in the routines you have and how you get to accomplish your goals. All right. That is what starts off Mercury being in Leo. And then Mercury goes into retrograde, okay? So that's July 17th through August 11th. Mercury going through retrograde, the first conversation Mercury has in retrograde is with Venus on July 18th. Now, Venus is the ruler of our appreciation, harmony, peace, love, abundance, right? And again, all of these planets are influencers, right? However, we choose how they influence, right? Based on the alignment that we're in. If we are highly vibrating, we are intentionally, mentally manifesting, right, positive interactions for ourselves. That's what the planets will try to influence. If we are mentally and emotionally vibrating to where we are doing that out of fear and anxiety and worry and negativity and pessimism, that's what the planets are going to influence for us. We're going to have more of that. So we're always the deciders of what influence happens. The influence happens regardless. We ourselves choose how it is applied, right? So with Venus coming into your 8th house is the house that rules transitions and transformations. It's ruled by Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto. And Mercury just had a conversation with Pluto at the end of June. And now we hit July 18th. And Venus is in that 8th house of transformations, transitions, and change. Okay. And so Venus is trying to influence you in a way to bring opportunities to help you understand how your curious nature or your imaginative nature, you being flexible, can help you in this particular situation. And then on July 31st, the sun comes in conjunction with Mercury. So they occupy the same space. They occupy the same degree of Leo. And this is in your 10th house, right? There's an emphasis here. The sun comes in and shines something in your house of accomplishment, goals, the influence that you have, you know, your fame, the achievements, your reputation. The sun and Mercury are like, look at this. And that happens at the end of July. Okay. And then we get to the 3rd round. All right. So this is now Mercury coming out of retrograde. Mercury will spin for a second and move very slowly, and then it'll take off. Right. So with that energy, Mercury is going to pass by Mars, the sextile area to Mars twice, right? Because Mars is going to pass Mercury and hit a sextile, and then Mercury is going to speed up and pass Mars and hit another sextile. Okay, so this happens on the 15th and the 18th. All right, and this is happening in your 12th house. This is your imagination. This is your subconscious. Okay, so this is kind of like you being at peace with your subconscious. And again, this is our internal part of ourselves that leans heavily on fear or anxiety, leans heavily on desire, leans heavily on illusion, delusion, confusion, or leans heavily on, you know, fantasy. It's our imagination, right? So for you, with Mars being the influencer over our action and our drive, you need to pay careful attention to how your behaviors interact with your imagination, right? Because they need to lean more heavily towards diplomatic or helpful, fair behaviors that don't really pull on those negative vibrations, right? Like you kind of more so, because the 12th house is a trick bag, okay? That house is a dangerous house. And so I feel like also is the 8th house, right? So there's an emphasis here for you, Scorpio rising, around your comfortability, around the habits that you make for yourself to attain your long-term goals. This is about how your imagination or your upbringing, your internal, your younger child, your inner child plays a part in how it is that you create these systems for yourself to achieve. How are you operating in that? That is what Mercury is working on for you in these 3 rounds through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo. All right. And it's communicating with all of these different planets so that you can see how you can better act. So as Mercury comes out of retrograde, this is kind of like you needing to pay attention to how your subconscious makes you function within your behaviors. You got to pay attention to that. And when you feel like you are leaning more into fear or into those negative, you know, vibrational energies, you change that. It's always you choose. Okay, Scorpio, you choose what you do. So this is about, again, creating better behaviors for yourself. And maybe, you know, the behaviors is more so your adult self versus like leaning into that inner child that, you know, acts out because of uncomfortability. All right, this is all about your comfortability and how hard you can push yourself and what your subconscious does in that process, okay? Sagittarius. So Mercury is going to be working on your mind, your communication, your observation, intellect, as it relates to your charisma or your arrogance within your realm of exploration and discovery. So this for you is higher education, long distance travel, a second life partner. And honestly, Sagittarius, you are hitting a lot of the partner houses and friendship houses and commitment houses. So this for you could actually be a relationship, you know, revolved around a relationship. But again, the second life partner, law, ethics, discovery. This is your ideology, your worldview. This is religion or spirituality, cultural learning. Okay, so Mercury is in your 9th house of Leo. All right, so this is your courage within that realm. This is your arrogance or ego within that realm. Okay, and how your mind works there. So as Mercury made its way through Leo, Mercury passed the degrees 4 through 15 twice already. And Mercury is about to come out of retrograde, or probably likely already has come out of retrograde once this video is dropped. So it'll go back through 4 through 15 degrees for a 3rd time since the end of July. All right, so we're going to talk about each individual round and what energy that brought, and then how you need to go forward after retrograde has ended. All right, so the first round would have been June 29th through July 11th of 2025. And this first round also could have been July 4th through July 12th of 2024. But last year, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same people, places, or things. This could be energy that points at the same behavior for you, or points at the same thought process for you that you kind of need to realign yourself in. Okay. The second round would have been actual retrograde, which is 15 back to 4 degrees, and that's July 17th through August 11th. And then the third round would be August 11th through August 24th to the 15th degree. And then Mercury will cross into Virgo on September 9th. So for this first round, Mercury talked to Saturn and Neptune at the end of June. Okay, Mercury talked to Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto at the end of June. Saturn and Neptune are occupying the same degree, so they are in a conjunction and working together as it relates to Saturn, which is the ruler over your karma, cause, and effect, and Neptune, which is the ruler over your imagination and your subconscious, right? So this is within your 5th house, all right? So this is your entertainment. This is your on a short-term basis, what you kind of commit yourself to in a short-term time span, like the things that you do to kind of keep yourself occupied or enjoy yourself. All right. So that is, you know, fun, games, pleasure. That's your self-expression. That is casual dating, casual sex. That's your love affairs, entrepreneurship, and also children. Also children, your entertainment. Okay. So Saturn and Neptune are in the 5th house, giving us lessons, right? Because this is before Saturn and Neptune were in retrograde. They were in Aries, the 1st degree of Aries, in that 5th house. So they're already giving you, lessons around your karma as it relates to your subconscious and how it plays a part and how quickly or how quickly you move on from things or move towards things, how ruthless you are in this area of life of entertainment, how impulsive you are in this area of life or entertainment. These planets are communicating to kind of give you emphasis on how, your expression and your discovery play a part in like the courage that you have or the charisma that you have. Aries and Leo, very pride, charisma, courage driven energy. Okay. And then Mercury has a conversation with Pluto at the end of June as well. All right. And Pluto is in your 3rd house of Aquarius. So the thing about Pluto here is Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until 2044. Pluto represents our change as our transitions in life to different energy. Okay. So if you're old enough, you will recognize that, you know, every 15, 17, 20 years, there is a change that happens in your life. And, you know, it's a new era of life. Things just look entirely different. That's Pluto. So right now, Sagittarius rising, and I'm a Sagittarius rising, so I most definitely understand what's happening here. There's a change that's happening within your mind space. All right. The 3rd house is ruled by Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. And that's what we're talking about, Mercury. Okay. So Pluto is in that 3rd house of Aquarius. And this is kind of like being a little bit more original in your thought process, being a little bit more logical in your thought process. You know, you finding the balance between your originality or rebelling against it. Right. So with Pluto in this 3rd house, there's something here that is changing around your mind. And again, this still links back to that Mercury in that 9th house. And this is around exploration, discovery. This for you could be a second life partner, higher learning, and all the things that I've already said. I will not repeat it again. Okay. And so that's our first round. Our second round, July 17th through August 11th, this is retrograde energy. So retrograde will either pull back that energy from July 29th through July 17th of this year, or July 4th through July 12th of 2024. Right. So Mercury is now talking to Venus in the 7th house. All right. Your 7th house is your long-term binds. And this is why I say this is very representative, could be a relationship for you, Sagittarius, emphasis on your long-term commitment or your commitment to people. Right. So this is Venus in your 7th house, right? So the 7th house is ruled by Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So Venus is in a very comfortable house in the 7th house, right? Venus is working to provide you harmony and abundance around your flexibility, or, you know, how curious you are, how imaginative you are. Now, Venus is the ruler of appreciation and harmony, okay? Venus likes to bring in abundance, love, beauty, art, relationships, partnerships. And again, this is the house of relationship and partnerships, long-term commitments. Okay, so Venus wants to bring in abundance. And again, when I say we have these opportunities and we have, you know, this energy around it, we choose whether that's good or bad. If you are negatively vibrating, if you are having pessimistic thoughts, these planets are going to want to come in and give you exactly what you're thinking about. And this is why we say you got to keep them thoughts positive, right? You got to pull in, manifest the good things for yourself. And the way that you do that is by changing how you think, by changing how you reflect on things and what it is that you want, right? No negative, low vibrating thoughts. So this is Venus wanting to come in. So again, I'll give you an example. Maybe you are headed towards a long-term relationship or something like that, or you want a long-term relationship. However, in this moment, it may not necessarily be working out in the way that you anticipated it to. You could have several thoughts in this moment. You could be like, oh man, my love life, I ain't gonna never have a love life. Oh man, I'm never gonna find somebody to marry. Oh man, I'm not ever going to, like, no one ever really understands me. And every time you see, Venus is going to bring in more people that don't understand you, more people that don't want to give a commitment to you, because Venus is going to think that's what you want. Let's bring an abundance of that. Oh man, this person never wants to find that. Great, we'll just bring in all the bad stuff. Or I can't wait to find my partner. I cannot wait to find the person that I'm going to be with for a lifetime or for a long period of time. I can't wait to get married. I know there's somebody out there for me. And now Venus is like, oh yeah, they ready for a long-term relationship. Let's bring in the good candidates to fit this wish, to fit these thoughts. You see how that works? So the people, you know, when you stuck in that pessimistic state and the expectation is that it's going to change magically, no, you change it with your thoughts. Okay. So let's just make that very clear. So again, when I say these aspects, when I talk about these aspects, it's not necessarily bringing good or bad. You choose that for yourself. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. So Venus wants to bring in some sort of, you know, love affair, something that kind of changes your perspective, something that makes you curious, something that kind of brings in, you know, the possibility of something new. All right. And it may be different, right? Because this is flexibility. This is curiosity. You know, this is imaginative and like not leaning into shallowness or imbalance, right? So, you know, you might see something that pops up here. And then at the end of July 31st, Mercury spoke with the sun, right? And they were in conjunction with one another. So that means that they were occupying the same space in Leo, right? They were occupying the same degree. And this is in your 9th house. So again, this is your exploration and discovery. And again, I'm not going to repeat the whole long list of things, okay? But this is within your exploration and discovery, okay? So this could be somebody that you could be considering as a second life partner, and then there's something that comes in to kind of change your perspective about it or give you the opportunity to see something different, okay? And then the third round comes along, August 11th through August 24th. This is when Mercury comes out of retrograde, okay? And Mercury starts going back through 4 through 15 degrees again during August 11th through the 24th. And eventually it will continue on and transition into Virgo on September 2nd. But for August 15th and August 18th, Mercury will be talking to Mars. Okay, so I do have a Mars in Libra video out. All right, Mercury is going to be talking to Mars, and Mars is in Libra, right? So there's an emphasis here on fair, diplomatic, helpful behaviors. This is in your 11th house, right? So this is your social nature, you being diplomatic in your community, you being diplomatic within your friendships, within your social clubs, you being helpful, you being fair. The emphasis on fair behavior, okay? So this is like now your actions, right, need to kind of realign, right, to fairness, okay? Now, Mercury is going to talk to Mars twice. Mercury comes out of retrograde and is spinning slow. It's spinning, you know, back in its original direction, but it's moving very slowly. And eventually it'll take off and speed up and speed past Mars, which is why there are 2 conversations that happen over the course of 3 days. All right. And there's, again, an emphasis on your discovery. For some people, you know, Sagittarius rising, this could be one of your friends that becomes a second life partner for you. This hits your 5, 7, 9, and 11 houses, right? So this could be a friendship for you. This could be a long-term relationship. This is the entrance of a new long-term lifetime friendship, you know, maybe somebody you travel with, who knows what it is, right? But there's an emphasis here on like you changing how you operate out of your charisma, or you changing how you operate out of your pride and ego. That's what Mercury is working on through all of this for you. Okay, Capricorn. So Mercury is going to be working on your mind, communication, observation, intellect, humor, as it relates to your charisma or your arrogance, ego, pride, within how you transform, you transition to and from things. Okay, so this is your 8th house, your 8th house of Leo. All right, so Mercury has gone through these degrees twice already. So Mercury started off going through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo on June 29th through July 7th of 2025. Then it went into retrograde at 15 degrees and started retrograding back to 4 degrees July 17th through August 11th. And now on August 11th, it's going to go from 4 degrees to 15 degrees through August 24th. And then it'll continue forward and transition into Virgo on September 2nd. Okay, so this first time around, all right, there's an emphasis here. Mercury speaks to Saturn and Neptune at the end of June. All right, Saturn and Neptune are sitting in your 4th house. Saturn is the ruler over your karma, cause and effect. Neptune is the ruler over your imagination and your subconscious. All right, so they are in the realm of Aries in your 4th house. So they both are assisting by working on your assertiveness or your impatience within your home or upbringing. And there is heavy emphasis here on how your imagination will help to build you towards your ambitions and goals, or how it doesn't, right? That's what you need to pay attention, or that's what you should have been paying attention to. And if you did not, think about what was happening at the end of June and kind of reframe that in your mind around what it is that you're supposed to be working on as it relates to your lessons around cause and effect for yourself in your imagination. All right, so this is you transitioning on towards something or from something, and this has something to do with your comfortability, your internal security. This could be your family, this could be your home, this is, you know, your actual real estate home, or like how comfortable you are, your home inside of your body, right? And that is happening at the end of June. Now Mercury also talks to Pluto at the end of June as well on the 29th, and Pluto is in your 2nd house of Aquarius. Now Pluto will be there until 2044, and Pluto represents the era changes of our life, the transitions that we go through. So there is some sort of financial transition that is happening for you, Capricorn, okay? And this might even have something to do with, this could be I'm so sorry. This could be with the houses that it's hitting. This could be illness, a family illness. You know, this could be someone's mother, someone's nurturing parent, somebody who you grew up with that was nurturing towards you becoming ill or sick or nearing the end of their life. So for you, this kind of feels like some people, this could be inheritance. Okay. For some people, this is like monetary upgrade, right? For some people, this is like bad habits and now you owe debt, right? It really just depends on how aligned you are in your life. So as we get through to retrograde, right now, Mercury is in that 8th house of transitions. That 8th house also represents inheritances. It also represents debt, like financial debt, okay? It represents resources, other people's resources, all right? So as Venus is entering into the 6th house, your 6th house is representative of illness, sickness. It's also representative of your habits, your daily routines, right? Your work versus career, your independence as well, right? So again, this could be several different scenarios for you, Capricorn rising. Venus entered into that 6th house trying to provide an abundance of something or appreciation for something here. Venus is the influence and the ruler over our appreciation, our harmony, our abundance, peace, love, beauty, art, okay? And Venus comes in and with this sextile energy wants to provide. Now, whether that's good or bad, it depends on how your mind works, okay? If you are positively pulling in things, manifesting, I can't wait to have this, I can't wait to have that, versus, oh my God, I am never going to, right? Those thoughts are what dictate what energy comes into and out of your life, all right? So Venus comes in and tries to assist by helping to find opportunities within your curiosity around your daily life or your daily routines. Okay. And then on the 31st, there's a conjunction. There was a conjunction with the Sun and Mercury in that 8th house. Okay. So this is your house of transitions, transformations, moving on. All right. So there's something here as it relates. This could be debt for you. This could be inheritance, like I said before. This could also be representative of your past as well, your legacy. There's something here that was highlighted at the end of July as it relates to the Sun. The Sun is also in Leo. The Sun rules Leo. So there's heavy, big, fat, juicy emphasis in this transitional house for you. Something is changing, okay? And then Mercury pops out of retrograde. We're here now. On August 11th through August 24th, it will go through that 4 degrees through 15 degrees for a third time. All right. And the only planet that Mercury will talk to during this time is Mars. And Mars will be in Libra. I just dropped a video on Mars in Libra. Go watch that as well, because it gives you the total of what to expect out of Mars in Libra. But there's an emphasis here with this Mars in Libra on diplomatic, fair, helpful behaviors as it relates to your ambitions and goals. So this is like the influence that you have, the fame that you have, and your 10th house is also another parent house. This is the dominant parent, right? Versus your 4th house, which is your nurturing parent. All right. So there's an emphasis here around parents as well. Okay. And with Mars and Mercury just leaving retrograde, Mars is not in retrograde, but Mercury is just leaving retrograde. It's spinning slowly, you know, and it'll pick up momentum. So it will pass Mars, the area which is sextile to Mars twice. Mars will pass a Mercury sextile, and then Mercury will speed up and pass Mars in the sextile. So that happens over the course of 3 days. And this is in your 10th house. So in this particular moment, as we exit retrograde, Mercury is going to be moving forward in Leo, and your concentration should really be on fair, diplomatic, helpful behaviors in your ambitions and your goals, or the influence that you have. This is your 10th house, all right? If you concentrate on that and align yourself to what it is that you're supposed to be doing as it relates to your ambitions and your goals, you know, this is positivity for you. Think positive, you move positive, okay? Aquarius. So Mercury is going to be working on your mind, your observation, intellect, communication as it relates to your charisma or your arrogance within your partnerships or your deep bonds. So this is your 7th house, okay? So this is what you commit yourself to on a long-term basis. Mercury has been working through Leo since the end of June, okay? And will eventually transition into Virgo at the beginning of September. All right. So Mercury has gone through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo twice already. Mercury went through it the first time, popped into retrograde, and now it's going to go through it for a third time. So this first time would have been around June 29th through July 17th of 2025, right? And Mercury would have talked to Saturn and Neptune in Aries before they popped into retrograde. Now, this would have been in your third house of your mind, your logic, your communication, and this is your house of Aries, right? So this is kind of like how you think as like your quick, fast thoughts, right? As it relates to your perspective, your communication. This could be like your ruthless thoughts as well. How you communicate might be a little bit of ruthless or impulsive, right? So Saturn and Neptune are sitting in that third house for you in Aries. Saturn is the ruler of your karma, right? So this is kind of like cause and effect, how you are building towards your goals, right? The efforts you put in, the results you get out. Neptune rules over your imagination and your subconscious, right? It's kind of illusions, delusions, confusion, right? Desires and fantasies as well. So Saturn and Neptune are in conjunction and still are, right? Were in conjunction at the end of June as well. And they are working to bring in improvements around your assertiveness or your impatience as it relates to your mind or your communication, and how your imagination plays a part in either you building up or you tearing down something, okay? And then Mercury talked to Pluto at the end of June as well, June 29th, and that is in your first house of Aquarius. Okay, so Aquarius rising, you are having a deep transition as it relates to yourself, right? Your first house is your appearance. It is your soul's purpose. It is your first impressions. It's the mask that you wear. It's your body. It is your perspective. It is your attitude. Okay, so there's an emphasis here with Pluto being in your first house. There's a change to yourself, and it's one that is going to last for a while. Okay, Pluto is going to stay in Aquarius until 2044. So this is a slow change. All right. So with Mercury communicating with Pluto, you know, this is yourself as it relates to your long-term connections and what it is that you commit yourself to, you know, how you rebel against that, your originality within that, right? Within yourself, how logical you are as it relates to this. Mercury and Pluto are having a conversation about that. Okay. And then the second round, when Mercury popped into retrograde on July 17th through August 11th, right? Mercury first talked to Venus in your fifth house of Gemini. All right. So Venus is the ruler over our appreciation and our harmony, love, beauty, art, abundance, right? So Venus is helping, or was helping Mercury to assist by finding opportunities within your curiosity or your shallowness, your flexibility within how you express yourself, how you entertain yourself, your love affairs, you know, children. This could be entertainment. This could be entrepreneurship for you, right? Venus wants to bring in opportunities. Now, just to be clear, opportunities doesn't mean good or bad. An opportunity is an opportunity. You choose whether it's good or bad by how you are manifesting. I know we hear this word all the time, right? How we manifest. If I am thinking in my mind, the fifth house, right? Because we're talking about Venus in this fifth house. This is dating, let's say short-term dating, or not, let's not use, well, let's use entrepreneurship instead. Okay. We're trying to find a business to have. And every time I try to start a business, it just seems to fail. And I get so discouraged by that. I start thinking, man, I'm never going to be able to start a business. Everything I do is just going to fail. And I'm just not going to have a business ever. And it's just, and Venus coming in and wanting to create is like, oh, this person doesn't want a business. They want to keep experiencing businesses that fail. So let's provide that. Venus don't know nothing about, your feelings. Venus is thinking of what you are manifesting in your mind, body, and spirit. And that is negativity. So Venus is going to provide that for you, because Venus doesn't know what negativity or positivity is. Venus is just going to provide. And that's for all the planets, right? So this is kind of like, this is where we say it's important for you to make sure you manifest in the right way. Positive thoughts, right? So again, in this fifth house, Venus is going to try to provide an opportunity for you to look at your curiosity, again, within your self-expression and your entertainment. And then Mercury in retrograde talks with the sun, and this is a conjunction, so they occupy the same space. They basically are on top of one another. They are occupying the same degree of Leo in your seventh house, right? So again, the sun and Mercury are now working together to expose energy as it relates relates to your charisma or arrogance within your partnerships, the things you commit yourself to on a long-term basis, and your deep bonds. Okay, that's what happened during retrograde. Okay, and for some people, this could be business related, children related. For some people, this could be marriage related, partnership related, like trying to figure out long-term versus short-term, right? It just depends on where this is sitting in your chart. And then finally, we get to our third round, August 11th through August 24th. All right. And that is when Mercury is going to be making its way for the third time through the 4 through 15 degrees. And Mercury is going to talk to Mars and Mars only. Okay. Mercury will come out of retrograde and be slowly moving through Leo in the beginning as it turns back the correct direction, right? And Mars is going to pass Mercury as it is moving slowly, right? That's going to be on the 15th. And then Mercury is going to fully be out of retrograde and speed up, right? And pass the area that will create a sextile to Mars twice in 3 days. Okay. And this is going to be in your 9th house. Mars is in your 9th house of Libra. I just dropped a video on Mars and Libra, and I'll go into much more detail as to how it is you're supposed to act within Mars and Libra, and so please go watch that. But within this energy, right? So this is kind of like concentrating your actions on fair, diplomatic, helpful actions as it relates to your exploration or your discovery. Okay. So this is your 9th house. This is your ideology. This is your worldview. This is your cultural learning. This is your higher education. This is spirituality, religion, cultural learning, long distance travel. Okay. So Mars, right, this is kind of like exploration, heavy emphasis on exploration, right? Mercury is talking to Mars, right? And this is kind of like changing your perspective on what it is, again, that you commit yourself to long term. Maybe this for somebody is wanting to go back to school, right? Like higher education, but maybe, you have to choose between school and a dating life or school and a relationship, right? Or, maybe this is related to law, like this is something law related, or maybe someone here wants to create a business around law. Who knows what it is, right? But there's an emphasis here as Mercury comes out of retrograde, your actions need to lean more heavily towards diplomatic, helpful, and fair behavior as it relates to your exploration and discovery on your outside world. All right. So again, all the things that I just mentioned in that 9th house. Okay. Pisces, Mercury has been working on your charisma or arrogance as it relates to your daily routines or your daily life, your daily schedules. Okay. So Mercury has gone through 4 through 15 degrees of Leo twice since the end of June, okay? And once Mercury comes out of retrograde on August 11th, it will make its way back through these 4 through 15 degrees for the third time this year, right? And we're going to talk about the rounds and what that would have bubbled up in your life and then how to handle that once Mercury comes out of retrograde. So the first round of Mercury going through 4 through 15 degrees would have been June 29th through July 17th of 2025. So Saturn and Neptune had a conversation with Mercury right before it got to these degrees on the 28th. Okay. Saturn is the ruler over our karma. This is cause and effect. And then Neptune is the ruler over our imagination, our sensitivity, our subconscious. Okay. So this is in your 2nd house of value, your resources. Okay. And this is in the energy of Aries. So this is kind of like your quick, fast, assertive nature within your resources and how your imagination creates a cause and effect for you within that realm. Okay. How your imagination helps either to support, your goals or maybe not support your goals, right? That's what Saturn and Neptune are pointing at. And again, this is around your routines, right? Again, emphasis on your routines around your money and how your imagination or your self-sabotaging habits play a part in that. All right. So that's the conversation that Mercury was having at the end of June, as well as a conversation with Pluto and Aquarius in your 12th house. Now, your 12th house is your subconscious. Again, your 12th house is ruled by Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune. Okay. And Mercury is talking to Neptune in your 2nd house and also talking to Pluto in your 12th house, which is ruled by Neptune. Okay. So there's an emphasis here on finding a balance within your logic, or like how you rebel, or how unique you try to be within your subconscious or your imagination, how different you try to be, how outside of the box you try to act as it relates to your imagination and your subconscious. Okay, now Pluto is in your 12th house, so there's a change as it relates to how your imagination impacts you overall. Pluto will be in your 12th house until 2044, and the 12th house is ruled by Pisces. All right, so this is kind of like your house, Pisces. And there's an emphasis here on, again, your imagination, how your imagination plays a part. Emphasis on how your imagination and your self-sabotaging habits play a part in your daily life and routines, and also your finances. All right, so that is the initiation of Mercury going through the 4 through 15 degrees of Leo. And then Mercury goes into retrograde July 17th through August 11th. Now, Mercury talked to Venus on July 18th, and that is in your 4th house of home, your comfortability. All right, and again, Venus comes in trying to provide appreciation, harmony, abundance. She is the ruler of that, okay? And in Gemini, this is around your flexibility, your curiosity, your imagination within your home, right? Or your shallowness within your home, your upbringing, your comfortability, your sense of security, your family, your past. So this conversation between Mercury and Venus, there's an emphasis here. There's a correlation between your home and your daily routines, all right? There's a correlation between, you know, how quickly you move through your daily routines and your comfortability within yourself, your home, okay? Venus comes and provides an opportunity. Now, the opportunity neither is good nor bad. We choose whether that is good or bad. We choose that by how we are thinking, and how we think is how we manifest. Okay, so there's an emphasis here as Mercury is working its way through Leo in retrograde. There's something here that is pointing back to your comfortability. Okay, and the abundance that you want to have within that. And then at the end of July, Mercury had a conversation with the sun in Leo in that same house of routine, right? So they're in conjunction with one another. They're occupying the same space. They're occupying the same degree. All right, so now Mercury and the sun are having a conversation, and the sun likes to point things out. Look at that. Look at that over there, right? So there's something here that would have been emphasized to you within your daily routines, your daily habit. This is your work. This is your service. This is your health or illness. This could be a pet for you, or this is like your independence as well, right? Something very highlighted at the end of July. And then now we reach Mercury coming out of retrograde, okay? So that's August 11th through August 24th. Mercury is only going to talk to Mars as it makes its way through these degrees, and then it's going to progress through the rest of Leo and into Virgo on September 2nd, okay? However, for you, Mercury talking to Mars, right? I just uploaded a video, Mars in Libra, where I go into deep analysis about, you know, what we can expect from Mars in Libra, all right? But from the perspective of Mercury coming out of retrograde, right? On the 15th of August and on the 18th of August is when Mercury is going to be having this conversation with Mars. Now, Mars is the ruler of our action and our drive, right? And Mars in Libra brings fair, diplomatic, helpful behaviors to kind of realign us, okay? So with Mars in Libra, Mars will be assisting us to help find opportunities within like your diplomatic, helpful nature in how you transition. Okay, this is your 8th house of Libra. So this is a transitional house. Now, the 8th house is also debts. Okay, for some people, this could be very related to, you know, your finances and you being in debt, and how that is tied to your habits as it relates to your finances. This could be, you know, someone coming into a financial blessing, and like you do actually have the good habits as it relates to your finances, and now you get to see that pay off because you have already been acting, or you have already been like trying to push forward and be courageous in your routines, because that's where Mercury is right now, in your routines, right? So now, you know, you continue to do that. You continue to have these fair, helpful, diplomatic behaviors, right? As you transition, there's something here about a transition around your finances, Pisces, a transition around your resources, Pisces. This could be a transition around like your worth and your value. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, and this could be like an energetic thing as well, and you needing to move past something. And again, this energy after retrograde is over needs to lean more heavily on being helpful, diplomatic, and fair. Emphasis on fair. Okay, that is how you put your best foot forward. Okay, Pisces?